Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today. For this video I'm going to be looking at the top 5 assassins in the game, so let's get right into that. And I'd like to start by saying the first spot for number 5 is a bit of a crapshoot. I personally went with Caitlyn for number 5 because she has really good consistent damage, at least against PvE bosses, as well as she can steal their attack, which makes them a little bit weaker, meaning you're not as likely to get run through by some of the later guild bosses, some of the tougher friend bosses. These things can help a little bit. However, she is not strong by any means, and I would not have her on a team, especially for PvP, but due to the state of assassins right now, which I'll address a little bit later in the video, she does happen to probably be the best for the 5th spot. The only one you could kind of make her compete with would probably be Himoto, but at the same time, Himoto is a little bit more inconsistent. She relies on the opponents being mages to really get damage out. Of course, it's not going to even be that much more with 50% attack. It does add up, so if you're fighting an Amelia friend boss, for example, that might help you over the course of 15 rounds. And she does actually she reduces the damage by 20%. Instead of stealing. So while the reduction is more impactful, she doesn't actually gain that attack herself, and her base attack is rather low, especially for an assassin, and especially compared to Caitlyn, who has a 40% attack boost in her kit, which puts her closer to 30,000 damage. You're going to see a lot better numbers consistently out of Caitlyn, but neither of these girls are something I would invest in, but it's just the depth of the assassin pool is not very deep right now, so unfortunately, you get left with this situation where there's no real good 5th pick, sadly. So, let's move on to the 4th pick, and I guess the first real pick of this list, and that would be Gambler. And Gambler's mostly a PvE girl, but she also works well in PvP, and I think she fits into one of the few niches like her and Sonya do, where they both do well in both categories. Now, they both do best in PvE, but they're no slouches in PvP either. And with Gambler, the main reason is going to be because the sources of bleed are very high. She has bonus damage on bleeding targets, as well as the fact that when an enemy girl dies, Gambler will heal herself. So while this is not great for bosses, this is great for things like the patrol. So if you're looking for units to help you with patrol, Gambler can help you do that. Now, she does seem to be a little rare, which is unusual because I don't place her as like a top tier girl, but I haven't seen many people with them on my server or any of the servers around, so like when I'm doing Guild Wars, you don't see a lot of her either. Maybe that'll change in the future as time goes on, but so she might be a bit hard to invest in, but if you can, I think she provides an excellent way to boost through the early stages of things like the patrol, the tower, guild bosses, friend bosses. She will help you accrue resources to build into a more PvP-oriented team if that's what you're looking to do, or if you're just looking to stay in PvE, then she's a great addition overall that will help your team grow indefinitely. The next one is going to be Enmaya. And Enmaya I only put over Gambler because I personally value PvP over PvE. If that's not the case for you, then you'd probably switch the position of these two girls. However, because of the recent change to her kit where she now has a 100% chance to stun the target that she attacks for 2 rounds, this is very good against frontline units that are not so much tanks, but are utility frontliners. So if you're looking at something like having Psychic, or if you want to have Nobunaga as your frontline, they're going to be hampered very much by something like Enmaya, and the 100% chance to stun is very high. Her poison damage has been lost due to that, however, she still does have good poison damage, so she also kind of fits in the same role as Gambler does, where she's good in both roles, but instead of predominantly being a PvE girl, Enmaya is a predominantly PvP girl now. However, like I said in the video previous to this, I don't like the way that it kind of splits her into 2 different paths. You have to kind of build her for speed now, which minimizes her damage in PvE. So if you are building her for PvP, you're not going to get the numbers that you would out of someone like Gambler, where Gambler you can just build her straight damage, and she will still do very well in both circumstances, whereas Enmaya is kind of pigeonholed into one path. And that kind of sucks for anyone who had already built her, but if you are looking for someone who can help you counter those first spot really powerful girls, and there's going to be a few of them, I think Enmaya is one of the best choices, and you can't really go wrong with that. Plus, she's not the hardest to get, so That's always a nice perk. You can get one in the transfer shop. So for free-to-play or low pay-to-play players, you have a good option in actually making her available, which is not something that can be said for Gambler. And the number 2 spot is going to be going to Dracula. And this might be a bit contentious. I don't think it is, because I know a lot of top-tier players like to run Dracula, but at the same time, if the meta ever shifts away from mages, her value will drop dramatically. So depending on the date that you watch this video, this placement might not make any sense. That always rings true for these types of tier list videos, but I think it's even more true when you're looking at a girl where their value is very specifically around one thing, and that is that she can stun mages for 2 rounds at 100%. And as I mentioned with Enmaya, that 100% stun rate is very impactful. So, as we'll see in the next video when I go into the top mages and discuss how powerful they are right now, shutting them down can be extremely vital to actually having success in the late game PvP. And not only that, but she also plays a pretty good role in the patrols because she has a lot of good healing. And because of that healing, she can sustain through the levels and she'll help you power up there. And she's not very rare. She's easy to get, so you can actually get her early on as a beginning player. She can then facilitate you through things like patrols, the tower, guild wars, all those things as you build up a better team. And then in the late game, she now has this role where she is a mage stopper. So she's a very well-rounded girl in that respect. She does her job in the early game, she does her job in the late game, and even if the meta changes later on to not be predominantly mages, she will still have a role as a kind of like a beginner-friendly girl. So that's great. She's not really a bad investment. And I think that's why I have to put her at number 2, only being bested by, I think, the obvious number 1 choice, which is going to be Hexa. And Hexa has been getting a lot of hate lately. I just recently seen a few threads on Facebook about how she needs to be gutted or nerfed or something like that. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I can see why people would think that, and it's because she can single-handedly swing a game, and people don't like seeing that. People don't like seeing when you're winning the entire fight, and then all of a sudden Hexa just goes off and one-shots your team, or 2 of them by 2, and in 2 rounds you've went from a 6-2 advantage to a 2-2 even fight. And that can be very devastating. But it is undeniable that her power is in her snowballing, and you have to be able to shut her down. If she starts getting these procs where girls die and she gains 30% attack, she's going to pick off the weak, then get stronger, pick off the medium health targets, then get stronger, and pick off the highest health targets. Even tanks are not going to be able to stand up to her once she gets 3 and 4 procs of this passive. And that is why I think people don't like her, because she's specifically designed to work in this way, and if you do not counter this, she will run your team into the ground. There are definitely ways to counter it. People like, or girls like Psychic do extremely well versus her, because she's not the tankiest, so if she gets hit with a stun and then a weakness, it can be all over for her. She can be very easily taken out before she even gets a chance to attack, and while that is true for most girls, girls like Sonya don't really have that problem as much, and if anything, it's almost a necessity that you would need that to even combat something like Sonya, whereas with Hexa, she's just toast. If that happens, she's out of the fight. However, her scaling and her natural power in fights does make her incredibly difficult to fight, and that's why people don't like her, and that is why she is incredibly strong. If she is left unchecked, she will win fights, and it's undeniable. So, before I end this video though, I do want to mention that while I did say that assassins are kind of in a weak spot now, as soon as they drop the new Angel and Demon assassins, that is going to change very much. The irrelevant 5th position of Caitlyn is not going to matter. Everything is going to get bumped down 1 or 2 pegs depending on how you feel about these girls, because one of them for sure is going to be amazing. The other one, I think people will be a little bit on the fence about at first, but eventually will come around to it, and they're going to change the landscape of the game, making this a very assassin-focused meta, at least for those who can afford the Angel and Demon girls, because of course they are very expensive and hard to maintain, but they will change the landscape. And I only really want to bring this up now because, again, if you're watching this in a date that is after their release, this tier list is going to seem absolutely ridiculous, but it makes sense in the time and context of today. So keep in mind, if you're looking at this and wondering, well, where is Phoenix? Why is she not on this list? She doesn't exist yet, but when she does, she'll be number 1, guarantee it. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for watching. If you disagree with anything I've said, or if you think that maybe I've overvalued a girl here somewhere, let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, thanks for watching and have a great day.